Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Yep. Hi, good morning, everyone. Pretty big shoes to fill after the last panel there. Okay, so we're just going to get right into it, all right? We're here to talk about the ROI of marketing, all right? And marketing as an organization or function has evolved a lot over the years, all right? And there's really no other time in history than today when it's as highly scrutinized for impact and value to the business, right? So when senior leaders look at marketing these days, it's not just about creative ads or brand campaigns anymore, but really about what is the quantifiable impact that marketing can drive for the organization, for the team. What is that exact ROI, right? And beyond that, marketing has been shown to be that sort of bridge between the product and the users, how to drive really close connections, and how to really help product land on its feet. And so for today, let's get into that, right? Let me just pull out my list of questions here. So Zubair, to start off, something very broad, okay? In your opinion, why does marketing even matter for businesses today?
Yeah, that answer alone could fill up the entire 20 minutes we have. But I'll start with, since our focus is making marketing matter, right? Let's do a bit of a thought experiment or a thought exercise. If you think back in the last 6 months, or even the last 1 month, 1 week, whatever, when you last discovered something new or a new service or a product that you kind of didn't know about, but you were either looking or you weren't even looking, and it came across your radar and you were interested and you started using it. If you think of how did you find out about it and what made you change your mind to actually start using that product, pretty high chance it was either a marketing campaign or something that was word of mouth from somebody you know, right? So that's kind of where and why marketing matters. It's really about driving that discovery and awareness of your product and service in a way that drives comprehension and drives engagement from your customer and usage as well. In a world where we have so many options and there's just in every category and product you have so much to choose from, that's where marketing really matters in helping your specific product or service to break through. If you look at different surveys and data, something like an average human is thrown like between 5 and 10,000 ads per day in your everyday life as you're walking around and just getting bombarded, and only a fraction of them register. So to actually make marketing matter, you have to be smart and you have to be effective so that you can break through that clutter. And marketing kind of is not just kind of driving the discovery and awareness as I spoke about, but also how do you make sure your customer understands what your product does or does not do, and then take that user to adoption through that whole journey. I'll give you an example. At TikTok, we have one of the industry-leading set of features for a safe experience on the platform and how parents can manage what their youth are experiencing on the platform. But when we do our survey among our users, we realize that while there is a high intent for people to want to use such features, the awareness of those features is very low. And so that to us was low-hanging fruit. So we ran a marketing campaign to basically drive awareness and education of these features among the right kind of customer segment. And we saw once awareness and comprehension went up, adoption went up as well, right? So it was just like the people were not aware or not able to discover that right feature that they were interested in using. So that helps. Another thing I'll add is, I have this theory that most products and services have a 3-phase life cycle. Phase 1 is what I call the kind of the organic word-of-mouth flywheel that drives adoption and usage. Phase 2 is when you're then in that phase where to get your next set of customers to come and use your product, you have to give them a why. You have to tell them, why is this product relevant for you? Why should you try and use this product? And that's where marketing comes in, right? When your organic early adopter flywheel isn't running anymore. And then there's a phase 3 where your product is either commoditized by then, not in a negative sense, but there's just like, it's not really differentiated. And that's when marketing becomes even more important, because then you elevate your product value to something that's more emotional. Think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. You're at that top part of the pyramid where you're talking about true value that your product generates in a person's lifestyle. I've worked at P&G in the past, and there I marketed laundry products, and laundry products are not that differentiated. But marketing played a key role in, we used to do things like, tell a housewife that when you're taking good care of using our products on your laundry for your family, you're actually taking good care of your family. Maybe you're a better mom or a better housewife or a better head of the household. So things like that, are where marketing plays a different role depending on where your product is in that life cycle.
Yeah, that's great. So tying it back to the business, what are the different types of impact it can have?
So usually the way I think about it is marketing has a top funnel and a bottom funnel impact, right? For marketers in the room, you know what I'm talking about. So talking about the top funnel, it's really about changing minds. So it's like, think of it as changing minds and changing behavior. For changing minds, you want people to know about your product. You want them to discover it at the right moment, in the right way, understand what it does not do, as I was mentioning, and have the proof points, right? If you're making a certain promise for your brand or product, you need the proof points that support the why. Like, why would this deliver what I'm promising? And the second aspect is changing behavior. Yes, you've driven awareness, you've driven discovery, you've driven comprehension or consideration even. But at the end of the day, you want them to change their behavior. You want them to make that move and pick something off the shelf. You want them to download an app and install it. You want them to take out the credit card or whatever and do a transaction. So that's another place where marketing plays a key role in driving behavior change. Time and again, when I speak with fellow marketers, I think, and I used to do this as well till a few years ago, where the focus tends to be on changing minds and perception, which is important, but you need to move down the chain for changing behavior as well. One example I can give is, when I was working on YouTube, this was a few years ago, when in many emerging countries, the ability for people to watch online video was quite constrained because of low-end devices, poor quality networks, high cost of data, and YouTube at the time, even though it's obviously a very well-known brand, in pockets in these countries, it was seen as something like literally we used to hear things like it's a data monster. Like, I watch one video on YouTube and my data plan gets over, right? These are people who are using prepaid data. They used to buy 100, 200, 300 MB a week, which I know for us is trivial. But in that environment, my goal as a marketer was to both change the perception of YouTube that yes, you can enjoy this product, this platform, without worry about your data and literally your money, but at the same time drive behavior change. So the campaigns we ran not only told the story of how this new YouTube app, it was called YouTube Go, changes the way people can use it in terms of giving them more control on data and the cost of data, but also driving installs. So we looked at markers of who are the people most likely to install the app, activate it, consume more videos on the platform, and we went after those segments to ensure that the marketing campaign drove impact through the entire funnel.
Yeah, I love this point because it really touches off on something we discussed in one of our previous panels on the strategic elements of marketing, right? And I think to the point I made at the beginning of the panel, a lot of people tend to think of marketing as, oh, you're just running ads, like the ads we see at, from the US, so the Super Bowl or whatever. But actually, even getting to that point, there's like 90% of the work is done, or 95% of the work is done before you see any ads, right? Before you even start creating the ad. All the strategic elements of understanding the user, like the back of your hand, really understanding exactly what excites them, what are the problems they're facing. Like, you can be the best at creating ads. You can create an ad that's just like, blows every other ad out of the water, but then it doesn't actually solve the problem of that one very niche segment of users and their problems that they're facing, then like no one's gonna see that ad, right? You pump $100 million into an ad that doesn't land. And actually we've seen a lot of big companies make these mistakes as well, right? They focus too much on the creative aspects as opposed to the strategy elements before that, right? So, how exactly do you, so I think you give a very good overview of marketing and what it does, the funnels, but how exactly would you show the impact that it generates for a company? Let's say you're walking into a meeting with very senior stakeholders. How can you prove that marketing is indeed driving value and impact for the business?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to that same framework of changing minds and changing behavior, right? So how do you measure that impact? Now, again, I think usually most marketers I speak with are looking at the first part of the equation where I'm going to change minds, so they'll track. I think all of us have the right ways to track change in brand perception, right? There are surveys, brand health trackers, You can do dipstick studies. You can do control and expose methodologies for your campaign to understand those who saw your campaign, how did their perception change versus not. So I think those are very important because they are a longer-term investment in your brand health and just driving kind of awareness and consideration and demand for your product. But at the same time, we need to look at the bottom funnel as well. And there, a good place to start, of course, is adoption, right? So whether it's a product or a service, how many of our users are adopting it, what's the uptake rate? If you're a sales channel, then what's conversion? But always push to go further closer to the business metrics that actually matter for your business. So as you're thinking about product adoption, what's that next step? How does it impact? Is there a revenue angle to it? Is there an ARPU or a long-term lifetime value for the user that you've acquired? If it's just transactions, then think of wallet size or mix. Is that transaction actually going to lead to repeat usage? Like those types of things, I think, are metrics that are important for the business, but most marketers actually don't think or either don't believe that they can impact it or influence it or just don't think that way. And I noticed this a lot when, so my role recently changed. This is kind of an old, so now I look at all consumer marketing for TikTok. And when I was doing product and partner marketing, it was more focused on down funnel. But as I've taken on this role of consumer marketing broadly, we do a lot of brand marketing. And I've still kept that ethos of the bottom funnel. Like even if I'm doing brand perception change, I take that down the entire funnel of like how is it moving the needle for the business and the product. Another example I'll give you from TikTok. So related to when we did that campaign to showcase the safety features of TikTok, this was in the US. It was a national campaign, but the way we built our marketing plan was we kind of divided the entire US into basically by state, effectively, or clusters of states, where in some cases we went completely media dark. So we did not do a campaign at all. In some states, we only activated 4 of the 7 channels we wanted to use. And then we added one channel in the next state and another channel in the next state. Now, this is not always possible. Like in a country like the US, we were able to do like this type of targeted kind of media planning. And what that showed us is when we were analyzing the results, we could actually assess the impact in different states on our brand perception and awareness and desire to use of those features and products. And not only did it tell us, did we move the needle on those metrics, but what helped us do that better than others? Did TV work better than out of home? Or did digital media actually work together with TV versus working alone? I remember we had done paid adverts as well and placements in media channels. We had done influence activations and certain activation events in certain states. So we were really able to map and then compare all of that with the dark states where we did no marketing. And then what is the relative uplift and attribute that to the campaign and take that all the way to product adoption. So I think really kind of using your different methodologies, A/B testing, dark versus exposed, all of these will really help you quantify and tease out the impact that you're driving.
I see. That's very helpful. So, Zubey, you and I were at Google together, and I think something that worked really well over there is, it's your point. It's almost like having layered metrics. Right, you might have one primary metric that you're looking at, and you're saying, hey, this campaign, we can't expect it to just get users right away. So maybe brand awareness and perception is actually the primary metric, but then using data, a lot of data we have from past campaigns, how would this eventually actually lead to more revenue or more profit, more users, which are, as close to the sun as possible in terms of what shareholders care the most about, right? Okay, great. So let's say you walk into a meeting with, state shareholders and whatnot, and they're aligned on your metrics. How then do you quantify the impact and show them that there's a clear ROI, dollar in, dollar out?
Yeah, and I think as you become a more senior marketer, your stakeholders start diversifying a lot more cross-functionally within any company. And so today when I go into any meeting, whether that's a planning meeting, a recap meeting, a quarterly business review, the people I'm talking to in the room are actually like the CEO or the CFO or folks who need that quantification because marketing is a big investment for most companies in terms of dollar value. So what I've seen work is, again, like really, really quantify both the I and the R of ROI, but make sure that the R is a measurable business metric. So for example, the I, first determine what the I is. What are you investing? Of course, it's your marketing budget, both working capital, non-working capital, all of that stuff. In some cases, depending on your company and how you look at your P&L, you might be able to or need to put in resources, costs, and all of that. So really determine what is your I, the investment that you're putting in. And then when it comes to the R, again, don't just stop at product adoption, right? X number of users. You have to convert it to a true R. Now that could be return on ad spend and ROAS if you're only looking at those costs, or it could be ROI where you have almost a profitability look. And so metrics I've seen work well are if it's a user-based kind of equation that you're looking at, look at ARPU or LTV, so average revenue per user, a long-term lifetime value. If it's transaction-based, look at transaction value and that type of metric, but always pick that business metric that you know the overall business, literally your CEO and CFO care about. Then the third step is attribution. You can define both the metrics, but if you can't connect it to your campaign, then you're kind of hoping that when the needle moved, it was you, rather than proving that when the needle moved, it was you or your campaign. So for that, you have to get statistical. You have to do A/B testing, like the earlier example I gave where we did a dark and exposed. At TikTok, we use intense modeling methods for this. We use mixed media modeling, and we have other types of ROI modeling as well. So we can truly, the inputs that go in are immense. We look at all impressions. We look at social listening, PR and media listening, and all of that, kind of everything that's happening in the ecosystem, so that statistically, through analyses, we can tease out what was the impact on those metrics because of this campaign and that campaign alone. And then we convert that to revenue, and then that gives us an ROI. And that lands well with people who think that way, right? And those are your stakeholders who are going to open the purse strings and give you your budget for your next year, for the next campaign. So more and more, I think the quantified dollar ROI of marketing is more important than ever in today's world of limited resources.
Yeah, I mean, approaching it methodically, right? It's a very iterative process. So you run very small pilots, 10, 15 different pilots, so that you know which one's going to work best before you pump 95% of your marketing budget behind it. And at least you can go to the senior stakeholders and say, hey, look, we took a very, very measured approach, right? So, we did our best to kind of maximize the ROI for marketing. Okay, great. So something that's maybe very relevant for TikTok and consumer products, community and influencer-based marketing are becoming increasingly more used by companies to build up an authentic and user-centric brand. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think the shift is justified?
Very justified, almost, I would say, necessary, right? As I was saying in the beginning, the high proliferation of options and advertising of different forms that is just bombarding everybody, and I know you can all feel this from your personal experience, really makes peer-to-peer recommendations or user voices one of the most trusted sources of recommendations for people, right? And there are lots of surveys externally that have already proven this. So in such an environment, when you activate and tap into communities, you then start creating that authenticity of voice and messaging that a brand very rarely can create by themselves. And I think of it in the two ways to do it, right? Or the two ways it helps is authenticity and inclusion. In authenticity, it's really about real stories from real humans. People who've tried your product or your service, they're giving you real, genuine feedback of how they experienced it, what they benefited from it, or how it did not work. And that goes such a long way than real experiences versus a scripted campaign, right? In just driving credibility and believability. So at TikTok, in fact, in most of our campaigns, if you see TikTok marketing around the world, our voices tend to be our creators because they are the authentic voice that we as a platform have that can truly talk about what is their experience on TikTok, what's worked for them, what's not. If it's a specific product or an experience, they talk about how it impacted them. And it's so much more believable than me as a marketer and just putting a branded campaign out there. The second thing is inclusion. On inclusion, I think this is where activating the community becomes so interesting, because then what you're doing is you're kind of getting your customer to feel like they're a part of the process. It feels like they're almost shaping the brand voice, and that could be through user-generated content, through feedback loops, through advocacy and what have you. And it makes them a part of that journey, and then they recommend your products themselves, which not only drives their own loyalty and engagement, but again, becomes a credible source. So it becomes like a flywheel. And that's where activating communities, if done well, can almost snowball into a self-sustaining mechanism almost, right? To drive the message that you want to land from your product. So for me, that I find kind of very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure community and influencer-based marketing can live side by side, but I almost see it as like chronologically, right? Because influencer marketing has been around for a long time, but this community-based marketing concept is actually relatively new.
Yes.
Right. So you have a small community of no one's like an influencer in the group maybe, but just like a trusted peer, your friends, yes. Word of mouth, except you bring this maybe online through a community. So maybe one last question for you for now is, can you share a community-driven marketing example that drove ROI and measurable impact?
Yes. Before I give the example, I fully agree with what you said, Vincent, and I think the thing with community is it's not something, you can't throw money at the problem, right? It's not about, like, you could pay an influencer to talk about your brand, but a community activation has to be built. So your product and your story has to resonate with them. The example I'll share is we recently did a campaign on TikTok for positioning TikTok as a platform where you can discover great quality live content and specifically great music and new emerging artists. And we realized that, again, the way to do that is activate a community that loves live and music on the platform. So we went down the route of doing a competition, an online competition. So first we kind of asked users to submit music clips, songs or music as a part of the competition. We had a panel of judges that then kind of shortlisted some of the finalists. Then the finalists went live. So we went from short-form video submissions to actually live streaming so that we could connect it to the objective of our campaign. And we drove and encouraged viewership and people supporting. And the way we identified winners from the live stream is actually through community engagement. So comments, likes, actually gifting and supporting that live stream. That's how we determined who are the winners from that initial list of people going live. Once we had a smaller set of finalists, then we're like, okay, we've activated communities on live. How do we continue this momentum? And so we then created audio clips and small kind of snippets of videos as templates that users could then use to create content. And then we tracked viewership and engagement and sharing and all of that from all of that work. And then used that. The deeper the engagement, the more engaging was the content, and hence the winner, right? So that's how we basically engaged our users to feel like I am choosing the winner, I am discovering new artists, and that led to the momentum of delivering on the campaign. And at the end, we saw our live viewership go up. The number of people going live went up. They went live for more often. And our perception showed us that people were starting to agree that TikTok is the place to discover new artists. So that's how we rallied the community behind that effort.
Yeah, okay, great. That's it from us. Thank you for sharing all the hyper-specific examples as well from your past. What is it, PNG, Google, YouTube, TikTok, all the flagship marketing organizations. Any last advice, or you want people to?
No, thank you for the time. Look, what I'll leave you with is, as always, I keep telling this to my marketer peers as well, always think about the business, and that's what marketing needs to do today. It's more than just ads, it's more than great storytelling. Think about the business. Your stakeholders are product, finance, your CEO, and those functions. So keep them in the loop and quantify your impact, and you'll get the budgets that you need, right? Which is what all of us look forward to. So thank you for having me. Thanks.